Welcome to South Texas College Presents How They Migrated to Amazon Web Services webinar. The featured guest speaker for today's webinar is Aaron Talman, Information Security Analyst at South Texas College. Please ensure that you are logged into the web portion of the conference. For this, the web conference ID is 128456163. To access the audio portion of the conference, please dial the audio pin mentioned in the audio section of the GoToMeeting screen. At the end of today's presentation, we will be taking questions posted in the web conference questions pane. The question pane is available in Attendees Control Panel. Ladies and gentlemen, presenting South Texas College, Amazon, and Oculus IT.
Colleagues, good afternoon. It's a few minutes after 1 o'clock here in New Jersey. Today's session will focus on Aaron, who is at South Texas and is the information security analyst that was involved in the project in the Amazon AWS Amazon migration project. We're also joined by Sri Ilapuru, I may be saying that incorrectly, who is the lead for infrastructure services U.S. East for AWS. I'd like to welcome the approximately 30 odd institutions who joined us from throughout North America, including University of Miami, Montana State, Rowan University, Bryan and Stratton, Hampton University, Nassau Community College, University of New Hampshire, and other institutions. We welcome all of you, and we hope that you find this session to be informative. To kick things off, I just wanted to do a quick briefing on Oculus IT so everyone has some context. Oculus IT is the managed services vendor that worked with the South Texas team on this migration. And there are quite a large number of clients that Oculus IT works with or has worked with. Currently, Oculus IT has over 200 institutions that are actively operating within the Amazon context, ranging from Cornell to Florida State to Louisiana State to New Mexico State, and many other institutions that are hosting a large variety of their enterprise applications, ranging from their Ellucian colleague or CAS or learning management Moodle infrastructure. So there are quite a number of use cases and experiences within the education space as to what what institutions are doing with leveraging specifically the cloud and more specifically the Amazon context. So a lot of the use cases we'll cover briefly in terms of what's working. South Texas is a good example of very specific use case in terms of stepping into the cloud context. For those that are considering moving to the cloud or considering moving into the Amazon context, based on our current relationship with Amazon and our experience in these migrations, we do have a few programs that you can leverage. One is we have a $10,000 services credit to assist in moving any or multiple applications or doing proof of concepts into the Amazon AWS environment. Secondly, we also have the ability for those of you who are already in the Amazon environment to receive credits to reduce your current bill. So, for example, if your bill is $1, we can reduce that below $1 without changing any of the scope or service context. So take advantage of that if you're already leveraging AWS. And then a third item that's important to mention is a lot of institutions don't know where to start, and a good place to start is to move backup or backup of backup to Amazon, specifically Glacier, just due to the extremely low cost of that use case, and also sort of, folks are mostly, these days have looked at services like Iron Mountain and tapes to be obsolete. So we've seen a lot of institutions dip their toe into the cloud by leveraging it as remote or off-site backup strategy. So these are some promotions to take advantage of and the various costs and discounts. Just before we kick this over to Amazon to do a briefing, some of the other case studies that are important to highlight to show you a little bit of diversity of what Oculus has done, but also to give you an idea of what your peer institutions have already accomplished. We have institutions like John A. Logan, and the entire Genzabar company has leveraged Oculus and subsequently Amazon for hosting all of their ERP and other Genzabar products. So that's pretty significant. That's about 600 institutions. Institutions like Barstow Community College that rely on their learning management system for distance education are leveraging Oculus and Amazon for hosting their learning management system, which is Moodle. So is, for example, Toccoa Falls. Gwynedd Mercy University is running their Active Directory environment, their VDI, and also their backup of backup with Oculus and Amazon. South Texas College will cover. Piedmont College is hosting their Lucian ERP, for example, which is quite a significant mission-critical system. But these are just some examples of institutions and kind of what they're doing in production within this context. So at this stage, I'm going to have the Amazon team take over and walk you through a little bit of what Amazon base infrastructure looks like and what they're doing around the education space. Shri, I just wanted to do an audio check on you, and I think this is a transition point to your slides.
Great, thank you guys, and good afternoon, everyone. I'm extremely happy and excited to be here and share some of my thoughts as well as things that are happening in the AWS ecosystem when it comes to higher education customers and customers in the education space in general. So my name is Sri Ilaprabhu. I lead our solution architecture practice covering education as well as ed tech customers in U.S., primarily on the U.S. eastern half of U.S. I am part of our worldwide public sector practice, and in our worldwide public sector, we cater to 3 different kinds of customers. The first one being government customers or government agencies. There are state and local, cities, counties, state governments, federal, DoD, and so on. The second type of customers that we work with is education customers, all the way from K-12 on up into universities, colleges, community colleges, distance learning institutions, research institutions, as well as education technology companies, companies such as Instructure that offers Canvas, which is a quite popular of a learning management system. So a number of education technology companies also operate on top of AWS. And the last segment that we also work with is nonprofit, where companies or institutions such as March of Dimes and so on leverage AWS, and a number of others that also leverage AWS. In aggregate, as you see on the slide here, we're supporting over 1,700 government agencies around the globe, over 4,500 educational institutions, and over 17,000 nonprofit organizations in AWS. These are the numbers in our public sector practice. If you step back and look at overall AWS, at the moment, the last number I have is we are supporting over 1 million active customers operating on top of AWS. Can we go to the next slide, please? So When looking at what AWS is and how we offer our services to customers, it helps to step back a little and see what I mean by AWS and our cloud and some of the concepts that I'm going to be touching on. AWS has infrastructure in multiple locations around the globe. If you pick a particular location, let's say US East Coast, we have a large cluster of data centers that are located in a particular part of that East Coast, and that is what we call an AWS region. We have 11 such regions, 4 in US and 7 outside of US. The ones in US are the one on the East Coast called US East 1, and then there are 3 on the West Coast, California, Oregon, and then a 4th one called GovCloud, which is a community cloud intended to comply with ITAR regulations. So if you have any export compliancy data sets that you are interested in leveraging AWS for, GovCloud would be a destination for you to consider. Outside of US, we have a region in Sao Paulo, Brazil for South American customers. We have 2 regions in Europe, Dublin, Ireland, Frankfurt, Germany. We have a region in Singapore, Sydney, and Japan for our Asia-Pacific customers. And then we also have a region in Beijing, China for our Chinese customers. Each one of these regions is logically subdivided into what we refer to as availability zones. A simple way to think about an availability zone is a virtual data center. The reason I call it virtual is because there are multiple physical data centers on average behind a given availability zone. And the reason why we go about doing things in such a way is each region has at least 2 availability zones. In most cases, there are more than 2 availability zones. And availability zones within a given region are completely fault isolated. Different part of the power supply grid, different tier 1 ISPs going in and out, different fault lines, floodplains, different backup heating cooling systems. So the goal being that they are completely redundant, isolated from each other, so that a single natural disaster won't impact more than a given AZ at any given time. The chances of it being impacted in the first place are extremely rare because there are a lot of cautions and measures taken to prevent that. But if something were to happen, more than one AZ going offline is an extremely rare situation. Outside of our regions, and in addition to our regions, we also have 53 edge locations. These locations are points of presence and leveraged by our DNS as well as our content delivery network. Couple of additional data points on this. You as a customer, you decide which region of AWS you want to deploy your applications and store your data in, and that's exactly where it lives. Unless you move it outside of the region intentionally, your data and applications will not move out of the region. And this is extremely important from a compliance perspective. If you have a requirement that says data cannot leave US, has to stay on continental US, absolutely able to comply with that. Similarly, we have customers, for example, in Europe that have requirements that state that data cannot leave EU, European Union, and leveraging our Frankfurt and Dublin regions will allow customers to comply with that. Last point I will mention on this is at the top of the slide you'll see that while we have 11 regions and these regions are growing at a very rapid scale, every day we're now adding enough capacity into our global regions, the same amount of capacity that was sufficient to power Amazon.com when we were a $7 billion company. So a lot of infrastructure, a lot of air is going into AWS infrastructure regions every single day. Next slide, please. So this is quite a busy chart. So I'll try my best to walk you through. This is a depiction of our platform at a high level. A number of services, capabilities that the platform offers to customers. So I'll walk you through from bottom up. I touched on the regions, availability zones, and points of presence or edge locations. That's where our infrastructure is located. That's how services are accessed and delivered to customers. On top of that, we build a number of core services such as compute, storage, content delivery, databases, and networking. The reason why we call these core services is because majority of the applications and solutions in IT space leverage one or more or a combination of these core services. So for example, in compute, if you're thinking about launching a virtual server, whether it's Windows-based or any flavor of Linux, you have multiple options in which you can do that in our compute service called EC2, Elastic Compute Cloud. You can, there are 30 plus different combinations of EC2 instance types that we offer. Customers pick and choose which ones they want to launch, and if for some reason they want to move from a bigger server to a smaller server, it's as simple as right-click on the server in our management console, select a different instance type, and move from one instance to a different instance type. Similarly, capabilities such as auto-scaling, where you define a business rule and your capacity pool increases as well as decreases based on certain real-time conditions such as load on your application. In the storage area, we offer primarily 3 different types of storage. Object storage, which is served to our simple storage service, or S3. Most of the common applications that you're probably used to, for example, if you're using Dropbox or Instagram or Pinterest, applications such as those leverage S3 in the background. So it's basically an object-based storage. We have EBS, Elastic Block Storage, which is a block-level storage that gets attached to compute nodes for you to leverage disks that are external to your local compute node and therefore highly reliable and persistent. And last, we have archival storage, which is Glacier, allows you to store your data for long-term at a very inexpensive cost and at a very high durability rate. The services are designed, so both S3 and Glacier are designed to operate at 11 nines of durability. I'll quickly brief through some of the other services here. CDN, we have a service called CloudFront that customers can leverage to deliver content closer to their end users so that their end user experience is much more optimal. In databases, we have support for relational as well as non-relational databases, whether it's Oracle, SQL Server, MySQL, Postgres. You can bring your own database and run it on our EC2 compute layer, or you can leverage our relational database as a service, or RDS offering, which is a managed database offering. And we also have support for NoSQL and caching types of database services as well. In the networking stack, we have Virtual Private Cloud, or VPC, allowing you to define your network segments, your subnets, your ACLs, typical things that you do on-premise in your own data centers on how you segregate things and how you isolate things. You can do all of that in AWS, and you have full control over that portion of the network. A number of services on top of that for our security and administration layer, whether it's encryption with your own keys or AWS managed keys, it's access control and defining users and groups at a very fine-grained level, resource utilization as well as auditing capabilities so that you can tell exactly who's doing what and when. And then monitoring for your applications as well so that you can see problems before they become a real problem. On top of that, we have a number of services that we group into a category called platform services. Different sections in that are analytics, application services, the number of tools that customers are using to build net new applications and optimize and automate existing applications. And then we have an entire stack that's dedicated to mobile application development, application deployment, and optimization. On top of that, we have our enterprise application stack. 3 different offerings in this space: virtual desktops, or VDI solution, to workspaces is a product of our service of Amazon, AWS. Getting a lot of attention these days from campuses in either replacing, for example, their student lab environments completely with VDI solution from workspaces, or in some cases allowing students to do BYOD, bring your own device, and have administrators configure these workspaces. These are virtual Windows 7 desktops that run in the cloud, and users are able to access these from any device, anywhere, as long as your administrators allow that to happen. including tablets, laptops, whether it's Mac or any device that can connect to the internet. We have a service called WorkDocs that allows you to share and collaborate with your colleagues in terms of content. If you want to route documents through for reviews and gather feedback and so on. And the last service in that category is called WorkMail. It's a fully managed email solution that allows you to configure mailboxes and do pretty much everything that you need from an email solution point of view. On top of that, we have a number of what we call people services. This is where, whether it's our technical support teams or professional services that can come in and help you get going on a project. Our partner ecosystem, which I'll mention, is quite strong. We have thousands of partners in different segments, both in the independent software vendors, the largest of largest, Microsoft, Oracle, IBM, so SAP, certifying their products on the AWS platform, all the way to a number of consulting partners, both extremely large global players as well as very regional, specialized niche players that work with a particular type of customer and specialize in specific workloads. And we also have solutions architects that are available from AWS to help customers in designing solutions and optimizing their solutions on top of AWS. And that's the team that I represent today. And we have additional account management and support services as well. Next slide, please. So the reason why customers, especially in the education segment that we see, are moving to AWS, in talking to customers, we commonly hear 6 different reasons. The first one is time to results, or I'll also call this as agility. If I have an idea or a project that I want to get going on, typically with an on-premise environment, I have to wait for procurement of infrastructure. I have to wait for approvals. I have to do a lot of process before I actually can try the idea, whether it's a simple product idea or launching a new solution. In AWS, it's literally a matter of minutes. Log into your console, web console, and a few clicks later, you have 1 or 100 or 1,000 servers up and running in parallel. Or you can even automate that using an API call. So having that agility to do things really quickly, try them out. If that product or solution doesn't work, stop and you stop paying for it. So that's an extremely good value proposition for customers in moving fast and keeping up with the demands of their constituents. Low cost is another reason that we commonly hear, where by leveraging AWS and banking on the cost and the scales of economy, we are able to offer services at a very low cost. And the reason why we're able to do that is, number one, we have a very large scale that we're now supporting in terms of customers, and that large scale allows us to get a much better deal, much better negotiation power with our end providers. And then in terms of, in addition to that, we're also innovating quite a bit. We're doing a lot of research, R&D work in data center optimization and network optimization and server utilization and so on. So all of these combined allow customers to leverage AWS services and pay a lot less. And by the fact that you're doing it all on demand, where you only pay for what you use, helps a lot of customers, especially in the AEU space as well. Elastic and scalable, I'll combine these two into one. Basically, when you need additional capacity, you can literally either automate it, like I touched on auto scaling, or manually doing it either through the console or through API calls and adding capacity in a matter of seconds or minutes. And then scaling up and down is another factor as well. So no more guessing as to how much capacity you need. If a project is really successful, traditionally on-premise, you're now generally deal with issues because you're short on hardware. On the other hand, on the flip side, if your project is not successful, you're stuck with the collateral damage of existing hardware. In case of AWS, both sides are extremely valuable. You can easily move up or down, increase your capacity or remove your capacity or decrease your capacity and only pay for exactly what you need when you need it. Globally accessible, hear more and more about this from our institutions that are leveraging are in the space of distance learning or global operations. So this is very valuable because if, let's say, for example, they deploy into one part of the world or one region, and then as their business is growing, their institution is getting bigger, they may have users or students from all around the globe connecting to their institution or their systems. By leveraging multiple AWS regions, they're able to serve their end customers in a much better way. And the last, secure. A number of services, and which I'll touch on really quick after this slide, allow you to operate things in a much more secure way than traditionally being possible with on-premise systems. Next slide, please. So looking at a high level, the business cases that we are currently supporting and we hear from our customers. So I'll break these into 3 different segments. Business applications, these are applications where that are typically used to conduct a business. These are mostly back office kinds of applications that higher education institutions operate. The second one, which is more in the mission-oriented teaching and learning solutions, so systems such as LMS or distance learning or MOOCs and so on. And then a third one, which is in the research space. And this particular space, by the way, is extremely popular. We have a lot of research that happens both in the EDU space, education space, as well as outside of education space, even in the commercial pharmaceutical industries. A lot of research that happens by leveraging our high-performance computing and genomic analysis kinds of solutions on top of AWS. Next slide. Security is #1 priority at AWS. The way we design and operate our services on the platform is following security best practices. And in addition to that, we also adhere to and comply with a number of certification and compliance regimes around the globe. Some of the logos on the slide may be familiar to you, perhaps others are not. But at a high level, we have credentials in the financial industry through PCI certification. For customers in the federal space, federal agencies and DoD space, we have FedRAMP, as well as the previously leveraged FISMA. In the DoD space especially, we have DISA accreditation. For healthcare customers, we are able to comply with HIPAA certification and help customers comply with that as well. For customers that are in the GovCloud space, especially dealing with export compliancy, we have ITAR and PIPS 140-2. And then generally in the data center operations and cloud security in general, ISO 27001 is an international standard that is quite looked up to. SOC 1, 2, and 3 are typical data center controls that we comply with. And all of these certifications are documentation behind these certifications that are available to customers under NDA. Next slide, please. And the last slide that I'll cover before handing it over is what sets us apart compared to perhaps other providers in this particular space of cloud and cloud-based services. 6 different categories. Once again, experience. We have been doing this since 2006. We are supporting a large number of customers, and we're virtually supporting every imaginable use case, whether it's in the public sector space, commercial, startups, you name it. Every use case there is, we have seen it, and we have customers leveraging that on top of AWS. Service breadth and depth. Well, you may be looking at a single workload at this point in time. Knowing that the platform is available to you in the future if you need to expand or if you want to deploy new solutions is a very, very valuable proposition. So having a very deep and wide of a platform is very valuable to customers as well. Not only is it deep and wide, we are constantly iterating and innovating on behalf of customers. We keep adding new features based on customer feedback, and this pace of innovation is actually rapidly increasing as well. I touched on our global footprint, and Pricing philosophy is another differentiator for us. Since going live in 2006, we have dropped prices on 49 different occasions so far without any competitive pressures. And this fits in line with our pricing philosophy, which is if we are able to lower our costs, then we should be able to pass them on to customers as cost savings. The last one I already touched on this, which is our wide ecosystem of partners that are available to help. And one thing I'll mention here is I'm extremely happy, and we are happy to support Oculus IT. And from everything that I've heard from our customers, they are doing an awesome job in supporting and leveraging AWS and helping customers migrate and operate on top of AWS. So with that, I will turn it over to team at South College.
Great. I'm going to, at this point, Sri, thank you for that context and platform briefing on AWS. So all the work that we do at Oculus IT and Amazon is really in the backdrop. And at this stage, I want to kick it over to Aaron Thalman, Information Security Analyst at South Texas College, because it's really the stuff that South Texas College performs within this environment or to address their IT or their student, faculty, staff needs and requirements. I mean, that's really the outcome or the tip of the spear, or the most important thing from all of this and what you came here to get a briefing on. So Aaron, at the stage, if I can do an audio check on you, and if you can take it from here, that would be great.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you very much for having me. Sri, that was great information. Thank you. Great presentation. I would just like to kind of touch base and give you guys an idea. I assume a lot of people out there are higher education as well as myself. I've been in technology between K-12 and higher ed for the last 16 years, and I've seen a lot of different trends and a lot of different things happen. And right now, the cloud-based solutions and performance of the cloud is just a great option, and that's where South Texas College is actually headed to. So I want to give you guys a little bit of background, just touch on some of these slides real quick. Don't want to talk a whole lot and bore everybody, but South Texas College is located in the Rio Grande Valley at the very tip of Texas. We're actually about 10 minutes from Mexico, so we're in a completely different region and an atmosphere than a lot of higher ed schools. We're actually the largest community college south of San Antonio with 35,000, just over 35,000 students for our fall semester this year. And that includes a big variety. We actually have dual enrollment students from our high schools that are bused over and actually take college classes. And so we have 6 campuses throughout the valley with between 20 to 40 mile distance from our main location, our main data center. And so it provides a lot of struggles. When the college was first created back in '93, I think they had 400 students the very first year, and within 10 years we were already pushing to 20,000. So the growth is what has kind of created some issues for us over the years. It was more of a Band-Aid, make sure it works, get it fixed, up and running type of mentality. And so can we go to the next slide? So that brings up some of the problems that we've had and why we're looking towards putting things into the cloud and using the managed services, especially from Oculus helping us do the migrations and do some of these things. Because of the growth, not only were buildings popping up all over the place, the network was growing tremendously, the problem was that the IT department and area was not growing. It was the same number of people just doing a lot more work. And so some of the things weren't maybe planned out and thought out as well as they should for scalability, for backups, for purchasing of hardware, maybe compatibility issues. And we only had one major data center here at our main campus. So all of our branch campuses, actually, everything was being saved here and redirected back through here. So the high cost of SANs, as everybody knows, is getting up there. Although disk space is getting cheaper, still very costly to implement a large SAN. And so going through some of these I guess growth spurts created some of the problems. And so we started looking at other solutions as to how can we manage more data more services, provide better uptime, and doing all these things. The same number of people. Maybe we don't have the most expertise in some areas, but who can we look to that'll help us with that? And that's how we actually got involved with Oculus IT, looking at some of this. We can go to the next slide. So some of the options, when we started talking to them, we were looking for a small implementation of some Windows servers for us out on the cloud that we could actually connect to our network so we could provide remote access and do different things with them. I don't want to specify some of the applications we were running as they're security related, but one of the main ideas that we had was if we can have somebody else kind of managing this environment for us, it would reduce the workload on some of our systems guys. And so that was the idea when we started looking at them. Of course, we wanted our team to be a part of the migration and have a good, close relationship with them so they know what's going on. We don't want to just throw data and services out there in the cloud and hope somebody knows how to work on it and how to fix it and do the different things. So the migration process was excellent. Getting the teams involved and I guess building that trust and everything that is needed when you're putting your own data out there and different applications. Going through with Oculus, we actually looked prior, at the same time, we looked at several different companies, and cost-wise, implementation, all these other points that are on the slide were great, and that is the reason why we went with them. Let's see here. Can we go to the next one and talk about a little bit about what we had for our migration itself? Like I mentioned before, it was a small footprint of virtual servers that we originally had, and prior to Amazon, they were using the Blue Bridge data centers, and that's where we originally had our servers set up, and then the migration to Amazon. I can tell you from my personal experience, the migration was extremely simple on my end. Now, I'm sure on the back end there was people working very hard doing it. But as the client, it was a seamless process for me, and it was actually very great. So walking through this, the cloud infrastructure setup, I had a couple of servers sitting up there that were connected back into our environment, providing scanning information from our outside security edge, I guess. And so it was needed to be very secure. It needed to be accessible from outside of the college in case there was any kind of downtime or anything. And I needed somebody to manage and make sure that it was backed up and all of that for us. So going through the actual migration was, again, we had a meet. Actually, I guess we can go to the next slide and we can kind of show there we go. The project duration, the project planning was very well laid out by Oculus. Like I said, I did very little work, honestly, on a lot of this, except for getting the detailed scoping, deciding our time frames, when I needed the server back up, how it was going to work, and what we were expecting out of the migration. Going through on the discovery, again, very simple. We knew exactly what we needed to migrate, what data needed to be saved and backed up. Very low technical expertise on my side, I guess, for all of this, again, because it was in their environment. The actual execution and testing was very smooth going through, and as you can see, the number of hours and everything that the project actually took was very low. The cloning and actually the part that I came into was past the cloning and the backup. Once everything was restored into the AWS environment, I was then asked to begin testing, and I had to change a few IPs on my side. I was able to log into the AWS portal very easily, able to set up the server, do everything that I needed, and it worked flawlessly. All of my data was there, all of my scan information was still there. It was really a matter of changing IPs on my side for firewall entry. Again, Tiffany was actually the person working with me on the project, and we walked through it, went through the project sign-off. Again, extremely well planned out, simple on the client end. I did very little. The team took care of me, checked several times after to make sure everything was working correctly, and we signed off on the project. It was actually very simple. And because of this, we're now looking at some of the other services and offerings that we can use in the Amazon cloud with some of our larger infrastructure pieces, with like a Office 365 migration and some of these others that are really going to help us out, because we still are short-staffed and we need these things to be accessible out in the cloud. Let's see here. Can we go to the next slide? And this is kind of the structure that originally was set up, STC with an IPsec VPN to BlueBridge, and so the migration was actually just those Windows servers going to that new Amazon cloud, and I reconfigured the tunnel and back up and running it. It literally, it was within minutes. It was excellent. Next slide, please. So kind of capping off again, the outcomes, what we were looking for was somebody that can migrate and host the data for us and actually take a little bit of ownership of the servers themselves. The data, of course, is ours, but we needed that access and we needed a reliable infrastructure to allow all these services to be maintained and to have the uptime. And that's what the AWS and Oculus provided for us. It was the 24/7 monitoring, the knowing that everything is secure, and just having somebody there to lean on when you needed it. If some of our guys were busy on other projects internally, we knew that the latest patches, latest updates, all these other things were happening without us having to babysit it or to go through anything. So some of the lessons learned right there, one of the main ones I want to point out is growing into new features, and that's one of the things that we're looking at now. Now going through the whole migration process and everything, we're very, very happy. It's very successful. We love the services, and so now at this point, we are looking at other migrations and features that we can use from Oculus to continue, I guess, expanding our staff. We're kind of using them as an augmented staff a little bit. So, and just want to say thank you to them, and that's pretty much it. Like I said, it was a very, very simple migration for us on our end, and they provided a lot of value.
Aaron, I have a couple of questions that have come in. Since being in the Amazon environment, have you seen any outages or any problems from a performance or outage perspective, or have things been running? What's the underlying question, I think, is about uptime and availability.
Actually, we have not had a single problem with it. The way Suri explained it earlier, I was actually looking at one of the slides, and I'm not sure what it was. I think it was number 11. He was talking about higher education and then how you can expand servers with the click of a button. That's one of the things that happens to us a lot in our area. Beginning of semesters, performance on some of our ERP systems and everything spikes tremendously because we have 35,000 students coming in for registration and doing all this stuff. And with the cloud services, it's awesome that you could actually expand that and expand your resources and be able to handle anything that's coming your way. And we have not had anything at this time as far as outage or downtime or anything like that. No.
There's a question on virtualization. In the previous environment where your systems were hosted, what was a virtualization platform prior to being in the Amazon environment, if you know?
It was VMware.
Okay. So hopefully that answers that question for the team in California. It's just a VMware to Amazon migration, and that might be helpful to those of you who are running a environment like VMware, for example, and are looking at a migration because a lot of campuses are sitting on the Hyper-V context from a VMware context, for some of their, or if not all of their enterprise applications in their premise-based data centers. Now, a question, it relates to, I don't know if this would be for you or for your procurement team, but is your costing on a variable Amazon sort of usage model, or has it been translated into a monthly recurring model?
I can say on my side that we pay like a 12-month annual amount. That's the way we worked it out because of our budget cycles and the way our fiscal year works. That's the way we had to do. Mm-hmm. I'm sure.
Right, and I think that, yeah, and I think that's an important point, which is that depending on what your scope may be, the Oculus team has been able to structure or translate the Amazon model into a model comfortable for higher ed, which is in a flat MCR or monthly reoccurring or annual budget sort of basis, because that's easier for higher ed to deal with. And that's mostly because of experience, right? So for example, a colleague footprint for 5,000 students roughly looks like X. So on the back end, Amazon is happy because their model is, and payment schedule is satisfied, and then Oculus IT is stepping in the middle and taking the risk and issuing a annual or monthly fixed bill. So that could be extremely useful because a lot of times you don't know what you don't know. And then, what everyone's scared of is if they get into the cloud and it's $1 million a month, then it could be, a serious problem. So I think that can also be helpful. A question around, Aaron, a question around anything you would do differently if you started the project from the beginning. Any suggestions for folks walking into the cloud in terms of how to best approach it?
I would definitely make sure that your in-house teams are involved. Like I was mentioning before, we had our guys involved. That way we knew exactly what the configuration was, the setup, because it is an extension of your network now. I mean, you have to think of it that way. It's not, oh, it's out there in the cloud somewhere. It's a piece of my network, but it is being backed up by AWS. They're able to expand resources, basically unlimited resources, right? And data is protected. And so I think that's one of the key things that you need to think about while going into the cloud is the planning and making sure that you have all your team members that need to be involved in that initial step.
Aaron, maybe this is for you. How are you handling, if at all, backup and restore processes? Are you doing that, or are you delegating it to Oculus or Amazon, or what's the sort of way backup and restore is happening?
Yeah, for this specific, for my instance, those log files and those, like I said, it was a security application. That data was actually being sent back home, basically. It was a sensor, a node. And so I didn't really need to back up any type of data except for the windows and the configurations that I had on there. And I let Oculus and Amazon handle all that stuff.
Gotcha. And maybe Ashish and Sri, if you can also take a quick shot at how does backup and restore generally work? How are you generally doing backup and restore from an Oculus and an Amazon standpoint, let's say for an ERP system or a directory server? If you can comment on that, that would be great.
Sure, I can take a stab at from a AWS perspective. What are some options available to customers? And obviously, Oculus team can take over as to how they're implementing it. So the way we approach backup is we, on the AWS side, prefer continuous backups as opposed to doing once a day or once a month kind of backup, because traditionally with those kinds of backups, there's always, if there is ever a problem, there's data loss involved. So instead, what we prefer is a continuous backup or a system that is replicated by design. So the three storage platforms, EBS, which I mentioned, is a block storage that you attach to an EC2 instance or virtual server. At that layer, within a given availability zone, we're already duplicating data onto multiple physical devices. That happens behind the scenes. It's automatic. There's no additional cost. And the reason why we do that is if there is ever a disk failure or a physical device failure, Your data should not be subject to loss. So we're doing that automatically. We also enable a feature called snapshotting, which is either a single API call, or you can even automate that or through console. Every time you issue that, the bits that changed on that disk since the last time you took the backup are being captured and moved off of that disk as a snapshot to our simple storage service, or S3, which is highly reliable, highly durable storage platform. So that's how we see customers deploying backups and using EBS and S3, a combination of those two, to do continuous backups.
Ashish, do you want to add anything to that? Audio check. Can we get any audio out from Ashish? Okay, we're going to move on. So I'm just going to cover a little bit as we summarize. Number one is, again, as I mentioned, some of this stuff may be new to you. It's pretty scary when you're not in it. You know, from our experience prior to working closely with Amazon, you know, we'd historically been running VMware-based data centers, and we had no idea what the cloud would mean, and you know what IHOPS would mean, and you know all the details around you know how to run, manage, and monitor within a cloud context. So do take advantage of the 10 grand of credits and services and such that can help you stick your toe and experiment, POC, what you may be planning in the next year or two within the cloud context. So I covered this stuff already. If you're already in the Amazon environment, you could leverage discounting on your current bill. You have a great way to step into the environment, you know, get rid of sort of an Iron Mountain, tape storage strategy, and move your backups, your disk backup, over to the cloud on Glacier. These are really, really easy ways to get into the game. More importantly, higher ed is very, very complex, right? It's unique. And I'll give you an example. Like, you know, it's not about Banner, right? It's about Banner, and are you using EIS, and are you running BEIS, and are you going to be, you know, implementing XE modules, and how does that relate to your CAS setup, and how are things that are related to Banner going to authenticate against your Banner in the cloud or colleague in the cloud, right? These are all the nuances of higher ed, and it's really important for us to get an understanding of what you're trying to accomplish so that we can phase or plan out and budget out, even back of the envelope, what architecture should look like and what an associated budget may look like, so that you have some, at least semblance of a plan to review. Because a lot of people ask a very basic question, which is, you know, what makes sense to do in the cloud? You know, where do I start? Or is this going to be cheaper than doing it in-house? Or what are the advantages and soft costs? And, you know, a lot of questions and uncertainties. So, you know, with our more than 200, you know, production higher ed institutions in the Amazon environment and hundreds and hundreds of machines, we've got a lot of experience. So if you say, hey, you know, we're looking at moving this environment like a CAS server or SHIB environment, you know, what is that going to look like? You know, we've got a lot of experience under our belt of what works, what doesn't work, what the issues are, and that should be, you know, significantly helpful if for no other reason than planning purposes. So leverage that one-on-one where we can have our architecture team, you know, produce a draft costing and draft architecture scope for you. That would be a really key recommendation, and pick up, you know, any of these promos that, you know, would be relevant to your project. I'd like to pause. We're at the top of the hour. I want to thank, most importantly, I would like to thank Aaron for taking the time out of his schedule to share his experiences and lessons learned from the South Texas College implementation with Oculus and Amazon AWS. Aaron, we really appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Yes, my pleasure. Thank you.
Sri, thank you as well in supporting to yourself and to the Amazon team for supporting Oculus and this iSeminar. We appreciate your time.
Great, very much. Thank you, guys.
We'd also like to appreciate the approximately 28 institutions who turned up today. We hope that you were able to get some insight into what your peer is doing with cloud and how they moved their application or applications into the Amazon environment, what their experiences are with Oculus IT, and I'm sure they and other institutions that we worked with would be happy to be mentors to you so that you're not reinventing the wheel. We're going to start to bring the session to a wrap. Thank you to all of you who've taken the time to attend. Again, we hope you found the session to be informative. This is Oculus IT in New Jersey signing off and wishing you a great rest of the week. Bye-bye, everyone. Thank you.